So we were selling Ozzy Osbourne's son's house.
Shut up!
Anyway,
They're
a few years
amazing.
later, we were selling the property, and the buyer was an Omanian princess, and Jack took the washer dryer.
Oh, no.
And that did almost kill the deal.
She was like, bring that back right now. You're like, hey,
Yeah.
guys, don't worry. I will buy you a new washer dryer. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Behind the Lockbox. I'm Stephanie Zalowski, and today we have Ron Fineman with us. Hi, Ron.
Hey.
Ron is an agent with EXP, and he's been in the business, believe it or not, for 20 years. And I actually think we've known each other my whole career. I've only been doing this 9 years, but I think we've known each other for almost that long.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah,
I guess.
pretty much. Yeah. He is a global real estate specialist, an avid traveler, which we were just talking about that. I'll give you the lowdown in a second. Lover of aviation, and I know he has some stories for us. So with that, Ron, welcome to Behind the Lockbox.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. And you just got home from Vietnam. And when you walked in, I was like, how was it? And you said it was amazing. Just beautiful. And are you still jet lagged? Do you know what day it is? Do you know where you are? You're back in the United States. Did you know that?
I'm completely upside down.
I can't even
100%.
imagine. Because wait, today's Wednesday. What day did you get home?
Monday night late.
So really, like, I don't even know what time it is in Vietnam, but it's probably already tomorrow where you are. So
It's almost tomorrow. But
Yeah.
what was the most interesting is that I left Hong Kong on Tuesday and arrived in LA on Monday.
so funny. You went back in time.
I went back in
Yeah.
time.
My
Time
aunt-
travel is possible.
Right? It really is. And my aunt used to live in Australia, and I would call and be like, how's my future looking? And she's like, it looks bright. Like, we would always like joke about that because I'd be like, what's tomorrow like? She's like, it's great. Like, it was really funny. So anyway, when you walked in, I said, do you have some stories? And you're like, oh, I've got a good one. So you didn't even tell me. I don't even know where this is going or what's going on. So I'm just going to let you take it away.
Okay, great. So I took a listing in Carlsbad
Okay.
that I put on about a month ago, and it was my first open house.
Okay.
And I walked into the open house, and there was a weird smell in the house.
Oh, boy.
And I thought,
That's not good.
Is the
What
neighbor
kind of
smoking
smell?
weed?
Okay, so you smelled weed
I smelled
or something.
but it was kind of subdued.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure what it was. And at first I thought, like I said, that it was the neighbor maybe smoking weed. And then I realized it does smell like a skunk, but it's quite subdued. It's not the normal
Right.
skunk smell that you usually get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did ask my client to hire professional animal control. And actually the other thing is that the crawl space was quite tall.
Interesting.
And when I sold the house to them like a year earlier, the crawl space didn't have a secure door.
Uh-oh. That's never good.
And I did the open house Saturday and Sunday. And when I left on Saturday,
So you did the open house then kind of with the smell,
With
but
the
just kind of
smell.
like opened up windows, like
opened the
hopefully people won't
windows,
notice, like
sprayed with Febreze,
whatever you could find. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
and I put the crawl space door and closed it. Came
was
back the next
Like
day.
open.
Yes, it was down.
Oh boy.
Came back the next day, and the crawl space door was back down.
What?
So at this point, I said, okay, well, there's probably an animal living under the house.
And it got out and then opened the door basically or
Correct.
something.
Just pushed
Right.
the door open.
Right.
So I said, Victoria, you have to I can send my handyman right away. They can build something to keep the
Sure.
crawl space secure, and
Sure.
you need to call a professional animal control company to take a look. And
Yeah.
so they set traps, and they're the kind of traps, these metal traps that are, basically from you to me,
Wow.
that would allow something to go in, but as soon as it goes in, it sets it and it closes the door.
The
and
cage,
then
and then
they can't
it's
get
like a
out.
cage basically. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So the next morning,
Oh no.
she sends me the picture. I'm just hysterical. Of a skunk, of Pepe Le Pew
No.
in the cage.
So sure enough, what you were smelling was accurate, and
Sure.
it was definitely a skunk, and there it was.
Day one.
Oh no.
So
There's
the trapping happens for 10 days.
So when they come out, or do more like things get caught in it, or are they coming out and replacing the traps?
Well, they take the animal away
Okay.
and they put the trap back. And
Okay.
then, you know, I was having caravan. Actually, I canceled caravan.
They're like, sorry, Pepe Le Pew and his whole family is living downstairs, so we need to wait. Oh,
So
boy.
I had to cancel caravan. I went to the caravan in Carlsbad.
Sure.
And
Pitched
I told the
it.
story, and
Yeah.
people were like, that's the first time I've ever heard that ever happening.
Yeah.
And sure enough, and then I had to have the traps taken away for a showing. And
Yeah, 'cause
then
you
sure
don't want
enough, the
those
next day,
hanging out.
Penelope was in the cage. Mama Skunk was in the cage. Number 2.
Oh my God. They just like keep coming back.
And so then third day, Junior was in the cage.
Oh no. One by one, the family. So like, they were just like coming back home, and then one by one they're getting caught and everybody's
Right.
going.
They would go out. I guess they go out for food
I guess.
at night. And they bring the food back.
And had the
they didn't come
seller
back.
never smelled anything, never heard anything? Like,
No, it was a third home for them, actually.
okay, so they weren't there all the time.
Right, they weren't there all the time. And
yeah,
it was new
yeah,
because I was there a couple of times and never had that smell when we were
Right.
prepping the listing and stuff.
right.
So
But a skunk family wanted to move in,
the skunk
basically.
family moved in under the house. It was pretty crazy.
How many more days did this go
There
on
were
for?
only 3.
Okay,
So after the third one,
they
it
caught
was
the
done.
whole
They
family.
still set the trap for 7 more days, but
Right.
no other skunks. And my handyman did come and build a door, but we left it off
Mm-hmm.
until the trapping was finished. And
gosh.
that was the end of it.
You know, my home inspector came on the show like a month or 2 ago, and he had something where he basically was inspecting the house, right? And there was crawl space. It was like City Heights or normal, you know, all the older houses a lot in those areas have crawl spaces.
Sure.
Like they're not built on, you know, slab foundation. So he goes under and he sees 2, you know, with the headlamp, you're looking around and he sees 2 eyes like staring back
Right.
at him. And he was like, Mayday, Mayday, back up, back, you know, and he's just like, oh, hell no. So he gently and very slowly, because he assumed that it was either a possum or a skunk or something like that, but he couldn't smell anything at the time. Well, he like got out of the crawl space, you know, unfazed, closed the door, goes back in and tells the agent, hey, there's something under the house. Like, I don't know what it is. Because, of course, like possums or what, I mean, you could get an animal that could bite you, or it could be bad. I mean, you don't really want to get near
I'm
that.
sure the
or
inspector doesn't want to get involved with that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Or get sprayed by anything, right?
Yeah.
They're in the house talking, and all of the sudden, the stench is so unbearable. They were coughing. They had to leave the house, end the inspection, couldn't even finish it because the skunk, sure enough, had sprayed. And they said that the house stunk for days.
Yeah.
And it's not even just like, skunks obviously smell when they're just walking, right? But if they like lift their tail and actually spray, oh my God, my aunt's dogs have been sprayed. They had to wash and they had 2 white Westies.
Mm-hmm.
They had to wash them in tomato sauce, and then the dogs were pink for like weeks because like tomato sauce and like something
That's
else is
the
like
thing
the
you
only,
do?
yeah, it's like
I
the
didn't
only
know
thing
that.
yeah, I guess it's what gets it out. I know for sure they use tomato sauce. I don't know if that for sure works 100% of the time, but that was one of the things that they tried. They had to drive home with the dogs in the car, windows down. The car stunk I mean, you can't get that smell out of, I mean, it's why they do it,
Yeah.
right? Because it gets prey
I
away
think
from
we got
them.
lucky on that because the
Very
smell went
lucky.
away. It
That
was
means
never that strong.
That means the skunk didn't really spray it. It was just they
I
carry
think
it with
that's
them
the
a little
case.
bit, you know?
They probably sprayed outside the house, or they carried it with them.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And there were 3 of them. So, yeah.
They were all just like a stinky little family,
Yeah.
just moving right in.
That'll always be the skunk house for me.
Oh my God. That's what you call it. Lovingly the skunk house. You should put like Pepe Le Pew, like,
It's a beautiful house.
I'm sure. What part of Carlsbad is it? Is it near a canyon or anything?
No, it's west of the 5. It's
Okay.
walking distance from the village, the beach.
Great.
It's
That's
quite a beautiful house.
I used to live over there off Cherry Street, actually,
Mm-hmm.
off Tamarack and like the 101, basically. And there were mornings I would pull out of my driveway and there would be a possum like just chilling, or a skunk walking across my driveway for whatever reason. There's so many canyons up there too that I think they just come down for food or water.
They come from
or
the canyons, and they're all over the beach community.
Yeah.
So beach doesn't help. They're still there.
Agreed.
Even coyotes.
Oh yeah.
Will be in those
Well,
neighborhoods.
we've seen so many. I mean, you know, being in La Jolla and stuff, like I get so many on the Nextdoor app of like, you know, coyote sighting and whatever. Like you got to be careful with your little dogs. So yeah, I don't let mine out without me being outside, but yeah.
True.
That's wild. The skunk house. Oh my God. Okay. Well, you've been around for a long time and we didn't debrief about a ton of your stories. Do you have any stories about like open houses, or what's like the craziest thing you've ever walked in on?
Oh, I do have one of those.
Ooh, do tell.
So when I started in real estate, I was living in LA in Playa Del Rey.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I did become Mr. Playa Del Rey, which was kind of cool.
That was your name?
I was Mr. Playa Del Rey.
I love this for you, Ron. Okay. I'm going to call you Mr. La Jolla now.
We did end up moving to San Diego to take care of our parents. But,
oh, wow. Okay.
So I was a new agent.
Yep.
And I was given, at the time, that was about maybe a $3 million listing.
Which, big.
Yeah, it was a big house on a cliff. Overlooking like Marina Del Rey.
So beautiful.
Yeah, it was really nice. And I was given that open house. I was at a different brokerage at the time, and I was super excited about it. I set it all up.
Yep.
And some guy drives in front of the house in a sports car and wants to ask me a question.
Okay. Fair.
And so I go out there to talk to him.
Yeah.
And it was quite a windy day, so the front door swung shut.
Oh, no.
And the key...
Oh, no. Oh, no.
One of my very first open houses, if not the first, was on the kitchen counter.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a very windy day. This house is on a cliff. You know, what am I going to do? I can't tell anyone.
Oh, no. And you're a new agent, and like we had this story a few weeks ago with like an open house like story where same thing, like she almost got locked out and she had to call her husband and he had to break in through one of the windows, and like it's like you really like sweating, like you just want to do a good job. What are you supposed to do? Call your manager and be like, I left the key in the house.
It
like,
was scary.
Oh no.
So let me tell you what I did.
So he leaves, right? And did
he
you
leaves,
did you
door
not notice
shut.
it until you go to open the front door?
You know, Stephanie, I don't remember.
Okay. Come on, Ron. This was only like 5 years ago. Just kidding.
So I called my husband because we lived down the street.
Yeah.
And he came with his truck and ladder.
Love it. You're like, I need help now.
But the thing was, it was super windy. I said to him, you know, we're not taking our lives in our hands here for this.
No.
But he got up on the ladder and went to the balcony. And I had opened up all the doors, so the balcony sliding was open.
Thank goodness.
And opened the house.
Oh my God.
So I was
look
saved.
Look how resourceful you are. Were people waiting outside, or no? Luckily, nobody had really come.
They weren't there yet.
Okay, good.
Maybe.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it was all before. I was there
funny.
early, you know, all set up.
I mean, that's the good thing, right? Like when you go in and you open everything up, at least you know, okay, some windows and doors are unlocked and open
Correct.
in the back. Like we just got to get back there. And it wasn't like you were going to scale the cliff, you know, so.
But also you learn that lesson.
Yeah.
About the key.
You sure do.
So the key always stays on your person.
Yep.
And then it doesn't stay on your person when you leave the property, right?
How many times I got to tell you, luckily for me, I have never left with a key, but I have shown up to show a house.
And the key was gone.
And I call the agent and they're like, oh my God, I don't know what happened. Hold on. And then they call the previous showing agent and they're like, they took it with them. They're bringing it back in 10 minutes. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
But can you imagine if you took a key from an out of area listing and then you drove in traffic
and
for
you know that's happened.
an hour?
You know that's happened.
And then you realize you have the key?
I would die.
Yeah.
I would die. I mean, you have to turn around and go back, but like I would be so pissed at myself, and I would also be like stress sweating the whole we were couple weeks ago, we had Emma and Brian from the Barron team, and they were talking about, I love them. They were talking about how they literally they were showing a property in Mission Valley, for anyone who hasn't listened, go back and take a listen. This is a funny episode. They literally like were, a lot of times in townhome and condo communities, like there's a key fob, right? Like they're like, oh, this is for the amenities. Like you have that, whatever. Well, there wasn't one, but they're like, let's just go check it out and see if anyone's there, and we'll peer over and see if we can see anything, right? Well, the gate was open, so they went into the pool area, thought everything was fine. The gate closes, and all right, well, let's go back. They want to write an offer. Let's all go back to the car. We'll go back to the office. We'll see you guys later. They go to open the gate, and the gate is locked from the inside. You needed a fob to get in and out. So they had to literally boost little Emma, over the gate. You can see it, can't you? Over the gate, and she had to go knock on people's doors to find someone with a fob to come let everybody out. And I was like, guys, this happens. Like it's hilarious, happens. But it's so funny. Yeah. Like you feel like an idiot at the time because you're like, I swear to God, I'm a better agent than this. But like it does. You get locked out, and it is what it is. So
there's a couple other crazy things that, when people are preparing for an open house, I don't know how many times I've had sellers remove all the trash cans in the house because they don't look good. But we need a trash can.
Yeah, you're like, wait. You're like flushing everything down the toilet. You're like, this is not going to work. Like, sir, bring that trash can back. That is so I've actually never had a seller do that, but that's really funny.
I always remind people, leave a trash can for us.
Please leave the trash can.
And the other thing is, if you have to load up the garage with your stuff, put everything in the middle of the garage. Why? Because once the house sells, the inspector is going to say they're going to have to come back if they can't get around to all the walls in the garage.
That's actually really brilliant. That's a hot tip. I've never even thought about that. Luckily, I've toured listings where like everything was in the garage, right? But I've not had, well, that's not true. The house that we just closed a couple months ago, and I had that house in Fletcher Hills that we had for like ever. Do you remember me pitching that at Reba?
Yeah, you pitched it.
Forever. They did put a bunch of stuff in the garage, and you're right. They had like a workbench, and there was stuff piled high, and like there was stuff around the perimeter and all kinds of stuff. So that's a really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to leave that open.
Well, you do.
Grab some water.
Of course you can. Yeah. The other thing too, while you're doing that, there's been many times where inspectors, like even if they're staging, they can't move stuff out of the way. So like I always make sure that like if there's any outlets in the stagers, I try to make sure that the couches aren't blocked, because the stager or the home inspector needs to check all of the outlets and everything. And a lot of times if there's a tenant involved, you know what I mean? Like they're not going to go and move all their furniture to check stuff. So it can be, it's real fun, isn't it, Ron? I mean, the things we see and go through. Behind the Lockbox is sponsored by Property Showcase Group. Property Showcase Group has a team of creatives, directors, producers, editors, marketing specialists, and designers that work in tandem to tell and share stories of the built environment. Whether you're looking for full-service production or simply just in content creation, Property Showcase Group can help take your business to the next level. To learn more or to contact Property Showcase Group to schedule a consultation, you can find them at propertyshowcasegroup.com. That's spelled propertyshowcasegroup.com. propertyshowcasegroup.com. I'm back to talk about our sponsor and producer, Property Showcase Group. This is for all my agent and affiliate friends out there. Property Showcase Group has a special offer for you. The first 3 agents to email Property Showcase Group at teampsg@propertyshowcasegroup.com will get 1 month free of social media management using code LOCKBOX. That's right, 1 month free. And they're offering 20% off your first video production using code LOCKBOX. For more information, contact Property Showcase Group at teampsg@propertyshowcasegroup.com, and don't forget to use code LOCKBOX or mention this podcast.
You just reminded me of another funny situation.
This is what happens. You just start talking. Yep. Tell me.
So I sold a condo to a client in La Jolla, in Bird Rock. Right behind Starbucks, there's those condos.
Yes. Yep.
So I sold a divorced woman a condo, and she said that her and her ex had a house in Carmel Mountain that they had to sell.
Okay. You're like, it was great, a twofer, love it.
Yeah, and it was tenant occupied.
Okay.
And besides my experience, which I think is a reason why people hire me,
Yes.
they also wanted to hire me because their tenant was, I think, Korean,
Okay.
and they were Chinese. And
Okay.
Korean and Chinese don't get along.
Oh, I did not know.
So they wanted me to interact with the
They're
tenant
like, listen,
during
can you
the
please get this
listing.
tenant out because we want nothing to do with it.
I didn't have to get them removed, but I think they were there for another month or week.
Okay.
After the
Like their lease was up, they were moving
closing.
out, like
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Okay.
A few weeks or a few months later, but still, there was tension between them, which I guess is derived from their nationalities. Having
Wow.
just come back from Southeast Asia, I saw that all over the place.
Interesting.
Chinese don't like Korean, Vietnamese don't like Chinese, although I saw a lot of Chinese tourists these days. They're
Right.
allowed, and maybe they weren't in the past, but they just didn't have a good relationship with the tenant, and you know how it can be with the tenant.
Of
you know,
course.
you
Yes.
you need to come back, and then you need to come back again, and the buyer wants to come back and re-inspect something,
Yep.
and the wife didn't communicate with the husband, and then all of
boy.
a sudden you get somebody being upset.
Right.
In the Korean culture, I guess they don't like having a man in the house when the husband is not home and the wife is home alone.
Okay.
So that was something that came up during the listing
Interesting.
that I
Okay.
got in a bit of trouble with.
Okay.
But I was able to say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know." Whereas,
course.
you know, obviously the landlords probably should have known.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
So
Right.
that can be kind of difficult.
It's always a challenge. Just last week, we were Matt Tovey and Marcel Bonet were here, and we were talking a lot about all of the tenant stuff that Marcel has seen. You know, just because he's a flipper and developer and all that kind of stuff, and it's wild. I mean, we were chatting about just, you know, even I closed a property in La Jolla last October for $5 million. It was up on Sierra Mar. You might have come to that caravan. It took us a year and a half to get that tenant out.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was insane. I mean, there was court. I was staking it out for the attorney, and because I live across the street, I was like, okay, they're here now. I was just talking about this last week with them. And it was just insane. The amount of things that you as like a landlord have to sometimes go through, it is not great. Like, you know, the tenant laws here are very for the tenant, which is not great for property owners. And so it's a little bit of a challenge in California when it comes to that stuff. And we see it all. I mean, sometimes you have an amazing tenant. I just closed a deal last Friday on a house in Claremont for a repeat seller of mine. They had a wonderful tenant there. He was so wonderful. And he let me show it a couple of times on weekends when he didn't have his kids and he was there and I was able, you know, that kind of thing. But we ended up, you know, he ended up moving out and moving on. But they got lucky. I mean, that's not always the case. A lot of times the tenants don't want you in. They don't want to move because they know if the house sells, they're likely going to have to move. And it's a
going
whole
to cost
thing.
them a lot more money
Of
in
course.
many cases. Yeah.
Yep. And it's just, it becomes kind of a nightmare and a little bit of a headache. And so, yeah, it can be a challenge for sure. So,
I've had both sides as well.
oh yeah.
I've had difficult tenants.
Yep.
I actually had one tenant, one of my listings in LA, and he was a junior baseball
Oh, wow.
player.
Okay.
What would you call that? Minor league.
Minor league. Yep.
And I went to Dodger games with him. He would invite me to go to Dodger games with his buddies.
So fun.
And they were the most amazing seats I've
Yeah.
ever sat in, with the
Yeah.
free food right behind home plate. It was
So
super
fun.
cool.
Super cool. Well, there are a lot of amazing tenants out there. I mean, I definitely have come across my fair share, but then you get the bad actors and that's tough. I mean, I've had a lot of even clients this year that have sold, or I have 2 listings coming on next year where we've sold them something else. And I'm like, hey, do you want to hold on to this and rent it out? And they're like, no, I don't even want to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I'm closing a deal Monday for a childhood friend of mine that she's up in Orange County actually. And she was like, I don't want to rent it out. I'm moving back to Arizona. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to be a landlord, you know? So it's a challenge, for sure. So
Can be a challenge. Well, you've done
you got to
quite
be
well.
prepared. Thank you.
In 9 years, for sure.
Thank
I mean, I
you.
remember when you were new,
When I
selling
was just a
$5
pup
million
coming up.
listings in your first week, or at least
know.
that's what it seemed like.
It wasn't, but I'm glad it seemed that way.
That's important,
It's
right?
important.
Perception
is everything.
Well,
Yep.
one more tenant story.
Yes, please.
So this was actually a property that I purchased in
Okay.
El Cajon.
Okay.
And it was a development opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And when we purchased the home, there were tenants living in the home, or it was a duplex.
Okay.
And they hadn't paid rent, so we immediately had to start with eviction.
Mm-hmm.
We did get them evicted. I can't remember exactly how long it took, maybe
Okay.
2-3 months.
Sure.
And then as soon as they were out of the house, they broke back into the house and moved back in.
Oh, yeah.
And, because we still had the order, the El Cajon police were able to come back and take care of it again. But, if it happens whatever time later, that could end up being a big problem still.
Oh, yeah. I mean, is this recently or no?
No, this was about 5 years ago.
Okay, so somewhat recent. Do you know Ramon Maldonado?
The name's familiar.
Okay,
I
so
don't know him that well.
Johnny Norris is on his team.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I think I know who you're talking about.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he came on, gosh, this was early in the podcast. I think he was, I don't even know, episode 20 something. He was around there. And he had a story. He was, he's been doing this a long time. And this was back kind of 2009, 2010. It was like after kind of the subprime crash, and we were trying to kind of make our way back out, right? And he had a property down in like Southeast San Diego. So it just wasn't really like the best part of town at the time, maybe still not. And he represented, he was trying to help a flipper buy it. And they were, this old lady was in foreclosure. They got her out and everything. And there were some kind of freaky guys in the front yard that were like lifting, like, remember the movie Friday where they're like lifting weights in the front yard?
Yeah.
Like he like walked up on that, right? And he was like, hey man. And like, they were trying to kind of intimidate him, right? Well, the old lady moved out. He got these tenants out, and they closed, and the house was set on fire. And then they got the fire out, got new sticks put back up. They had to basically rebuild new construction in a neighborhood that could not support new construction in terms of pricing, right? Like this flipper was going to be upside down, basically.
Yeah.
And they set the house on fire again. Twice.
Goodness.
So it's like, it could be worse. You know what I mean? Like it could always be worse. But like, those are some of the crazy stories that happen, and that was, we're not seeing that kind of stuff happen so much anymore. That was, we were going through some anarchy times back then. But
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very true.
Anyway, do you want to play a game?
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and this is have you seen us do this before?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this will probably incite some questions for you, and this is kind of for us to like get to know you better too. So
Okay.
the game is called Punch List. We're going to hit you with 3 questions, okay? What is the craziest or pettiest thing that's ever killed or almost killed one of your deals?
Craziest or pettiest? Oof.
I know, you really got to think back. We've had people say like refrigerator seal, a blanket, like, just stupid stuff that happens.
Well, I have a couple options on that one.
Okay.
One would be I was working with celebrity clients in Los Angeles. One was a celebrity. I guess I probably shouldn't name names.
You
but
can if you want to, if it's not.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably would never know.
Yeah. I would love to think that celebrities are watching and listening to this podcast, Ron, but I don't think they are. But like, if you are, hey.
So we were selling Ozzy Osbourne's son's house.
Shut up!
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I did
used
get
watch
to
the
ride
Osbournes back
around in the
day.
fancy.
No.
When we sold it to him, I did get to ride around in Sharon's fancy. What was it?
What car she had?
Yeah, the car.
Oh. Was it a Rolls?
It wasn't a Rolls.
Okay.
No,
I don't remember what. Okay.
It was a Bentley.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
They're
a few years
amazing.
later, we were selling the property, and the buyer was an Omanian princess, and Jack took the washer dryer.
Oh no.
And that did almost kill the deal.
She was like, bring that back right now. You're like, hey
Yeah.
guys, don't worry. I will buy you a new washer dryer. That's what's so funny. This comes up all the time on the podcast where it's like a seller does take something, or, like a plant. I mean, we've even had, where plants out front were potted and the seller took them and they're like, excuse me. And I'm like, you got to make everything party to the transaction or not party to I just had something, my sweet sellers just called me the other day and they're like, we forgot to exclude those 3 white pots. And I was like, yeah, sorry guys. Like I can ask if they want them, but they probably do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I had a similar
tough.
one. Oops, I'm sorry.
No. It's tough when that happens.
Yeah. I had a similar one also in Playa Del Rey when I was maybe in the first couple of years I was in real estate, and this house was 3 doors down from my house, and my clients were buying that house.
Okay.
And the seller forgot to exclude some sconces that were on the bar.
And those are a fix.
And there's no way my clients were giving that up. And there were 2 big agents in my office. And they sent their assistant literally every day with a piece of paper for me to have my client sign.
To say that they were excluded, basically. They didn't convey.
To exclude it. And I knew that it wasn't possible.
Right.
If my clients didn't want to.
Right.
But I remember going to my manager because I was still kind of new, and I said, my clients don't have to sign this, right? He said, no, they don't.
Yeah. I mean,
and they respected me for it.
That's good. I mean, you got to protect your client's interest, right? And that's the hard part is, we've had, again, like I said, like there's been, rent backs and like, the whatever, I can't even, like a chandelier, for example, you know what I mean? Like those are, and you're like,
Typical.
you got to let us know if you want to take that stuff with you. What I always tell my sellers is let's take it down now and put something else up because you're going to have to do it anyway. And
always
then
best.
Nobody knows, right?
Yeah.
That hacienda listing.
Once the buyer sees it,
then
you're
they're
toast.
like, well, here's what happened. That hacienda listing, for example, the one in Fletcher Hills, the dining room table was, so they had like a big banquette built-in seating, right? And then they had a dining room table and then a bench on the other side. And the dining room table was actually her late father's workbench. So it was not going to convey. We had that in the MLS. I had it in the confidential room. I mean, it was from day one, like that was not going to convey. But the banquette seating that was built into the wall and the bench would stay. It was just the table that would go. And it was written literally in the confidential remarks in like the, it was written like 3 other places in the MLS, like where it did not convey, but they were all living there and that was their only dining room table. So like they had to kind of use it and leave it. Right. And we were trying to get an escrow with one buyer before the buyer that ultimately bought it. And they were like, I don't know how I'm ever going to find another table. And I was like, I will go to Amazon right now. And it was just like a standard, like long wooden table. You know what I mean? Like a normal, it wasn't like a custom piece that like nothing would fit in that spot. I was like, oh my God. But that's exactly why you have to do that though. Because if buyers see it, then they want it. And then they think, how can I move on if this isn't here? And you're like, I will buy you another table.
It can easily break the deal.
It's insane. Anyway. Okay. What is your biggest pet peeve? This can be in life or in business.
My biggest pet peeve is the toilet seat being up.
Such a good one. I hate the toilet. Okay. And
doesn't matter whether it's men or women. If you are showing that house, that toilet seat has to be down.
The lid.
The lid.
Lid.
Both of them.
So I got to tell you, even like I've lived in a condo for a number of years now. And when I lived I'm from Arizona. So my houses all there always had water closets. Like I lived in a bigger house then, it had a separate room for the toilet, right? Every condo I've lived in here in California, the toilet is pretty much next to the sink.
The shower or the sink.
Right. Yeah. It's all right there, right? When you flush the toilet, like I close the lid and then flush the toilet. Because particles do fly up.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Okay, thank you. But like so many people, friends, family, whatever, and I think it was so funny. I said something to my parents. I'm like, if you guys leave that toilet seat lit up in my bathroom one more time, she's like, I'm sorry, I'm not used to it. Because they're used to having a separate room for it essentially. And then it doesn't matter because the sink is so far away. Right. It's not anywhere near the toilet. So not only am I a lid closer when you're taking photos, showing, open houses, whatever the case may be, but also like just for everyday use. Like my toothbrush is right there. Like, can we please just close it and then please flush it? Anyway, I'm with you, Ron. I'm with you because it's disgusting. And anyway, okay. I'm really interested in this. If you could be anything, yes, please. While I ask you, I'm gonna say it as you're taking a drink. Just kidding. If you could be anything other than a real estate agent, what would you be and why?
That one's easy.
What?
So I
Pilot?
never wanted to be this as a kid growing up, and then was disappointed later.
Okay.
It's something that evolved over the last maybe 10, 15 years, and that is a pilot.
I guessed because I saw your Instagram and I know how much you love to travel.
I'm really into planes.
I love this.
I mean, seriously into planes.
As a young boy, you weren't.
I've always been, you know, in awe of planes.
Sure.
Sure.
Love to travel, love to fly, whatever.
Certainly as a young boy.
Yep.
And we lived in Playa Del Rey in Los Angeles, so we got to see the planes take off all the time. But I really do like being in them. I like all the configurations of the planes, how many seats are up front for the pilot, you know, whether there's some kind of secret compartment in a lower level or something.
Ooh.
Where does the crew sleep?
Are you going to get your pilot's license?
No.
Why?
I'm not. No.
It's not too late. You should do it.
Sure, it's
Ron,
not
I would
too
like you to
late,
get your
but-
pilot license and then get a private plane so you can fly me places too. Okay. That's really my
Sounds like a
motivation.
deal.
For you
Sounds
to do
like a
that.
deal.
Okay, perfect. That's super cool. I love that. And you love to travel.
And I love to travel, so I get to go on them a lot.
Yeah. That's
The
amazing.
new planes are crazy.
Did you guys
amazing.
what did you take to Vietnam?
We took Singapore Airlines directly into Singapore from LA, 17 and a half hours. That was quite beautiful. We luckily had business class for that.
I was going to ask what,
And then we took Cathay Pacific from Hong Kong back to LA, and that was beautiful. Even though, so the flight over was an A350, which is the newer Airbus plane.
Yeah.
Very, very nice, modern. On the way home,
In that business, did you have a seat that laid down?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
On both ways.
Okay, good. You need it.
Yeah, you need it.
Yeah.
And the way back is a 777, which is one of the largest airplanes.
Yep.
It was very comfortable.
Yep.
You know, those airlines in Asia really know how to do it. Cathay Pacific
I have
is the
seen that on social media.
Singapore is one of the best.
Yep.
Cathay Pacific is also one of the best. I'd highly recommend it. So
That's cool. I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to get all your travel recs and your plane recs, by the way.
Absolutely.
So, yes, we'll do all those things. Ron, thank you so much for being here.
my pleasure.
I'm
It's
so
been
glad
fun.
you did this. I know. We'll have
It's
to have
been
you
fun.
back. We'll have
I
to
would
have-
love to come back.
I know you're going to have more stories for us. So, you know.
Anytime.
It'll come to you. Every time everyone leaves, they're like, oh, I should have told this. I'm like, you're coming back then. That's what we're going to do. So, yeah.
Cool.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Behind the Lockbox. Leave us a kind review. And, of course, please don't forget to follow and download the show. And we'll see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Behind the Lockbox is produced and edited by Property Showcase Group. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, or review this podcast. Thanks for your support. See you next week.